Hey, what is going on YouTube? Aaron here. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are having a fantastic Monday. It should be by the time that this video is out here. And guys, we have a truly epic replay for you guys here in today's video. But before we get into that, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to everyone who watched and viewed the competitive stream today. The Winter Cup 25 semifinals, Pain versus SOA. We had like 200 concurrent viewers, an epic stream of replays there, going all the way to Game 5 for the competitive scene of Legends. And I will include a link of that in the description of this video if you are interested in watching that. Also a link to the Fleet Network Discord, which is where all of the competitive action happens. There's also pings telling you which games are happening when. Right now, we're in the beginning phases of the Rookie Cup tournament, which is where teams who may not be as competitive as the teams that have been, put together since the beginning of this game, can also have an opportunity to compete. But anyway, to this game here, it's been a minute since we've played the Jinan. Of course, we got it in a rental phase for 2 weeks there when the ship was released. And yeah, this ship is a lot of fun. It's not the most impactful in terms of just battle impact. You don't have radar, you don't have sonar. You're basically just a damage farming light cruiser with insane deep water torpedoes and a little bit of a crawling smokescreen here. Now, the good thing about this ship is it does have some pretty good concealment, which is actually what we're getting ourselves into right here. However, you do have to be very, very careful, as this ship is basically about 18 recycled Pepsi cans put together, as we can see. A very early radar and elimination of our Stalingrad. It just makes me wonder sometimes how these people do get to Legendary tier, because yeah, the speed at which they lose their ship is truly impressive here, but we're going to try and do everything we can as the First Blood. Yeah, this game was just a good little combination of our team. Just one of those games at Legendary tier where it wouldn't really have mattered if we would have gotten 8 out of 9 kills, because we would have needed 9 out of 9. But in the end, it is games like this that lead to the high damage totals and sometimes the funny moments that basically is the only reason I'm still playing this game.
All stations requesting fire on the designated target.
Now, I'm not going to lie, this is not the best position for the Jinan here. However, I did want to get nice and close and sort of fill in this gap, just in case any ships decided to push on my side. However, they really didn't here, so this is sort of a minus play. But in just a few moments, as half of my team basically evaporates, we will reposition and get ourselves into a much better spot. We are running Mr. Chen here with the torpedo-focused build on the Jinan. I know that PG and a few others like the gun build, but if I'm going to play a light cruiser for guns, I'm going to play the Wooster or the Mino or the Colbert, as you can see here. I'm not really playing the Pan-Asian cruisers for their guns. However, they do have decent guns, so in that regard, you're not, losing too much in combination with your deep water torpedoes, and you do get access to the smokescreens. However, again, it's just, I feel like when I'm playing these boats, I want to play them for their kind of uniqueness. And that uniqueness is, of course, access to the 20 deep water torpedoes, which can go about 15 kilometers with this build. And of course, you throw that in combination with your Torpedo Reload Booster, and you can get 80 of them there. Now, of course, you'd have to flip your ship around, and it's never really practical to get all 80, quote-unquote, on target. And as you guys will see, you've already seen in this game, trying to get, lead targets and get those on target at 15 kilometers is, you're basically just playing guesswork, right? Some people often ask why I put them short or long on targets at 10 plus kilometers, and that's because most players, well, logically in this game, are not sailing in straight lines for that amount of time at that distance. If another ship pops up or another target, or for some reason they decide to stop or whatever, that white line is now thrown off. So basically, I'm just throwing a bunch of aerial denial torps here, as well as just potentially zoning torpedoes. But as you guys are currently witnessing, my team is giving up a massive amount of position, as our team is deciding to just flounder in the opening 5 minutes of this game here. Pay attention to the 2 battleships which are essentially behind me as we lose another ship. because one of them ends up being AFK, which I should have known. He was sitting in the same spot. And granted, things happen, right? People lag out, you know, you lose connection, or you just, something more important in life pops up. In that short little engagement there, though, we did manage to connect a few fires on that defense as our 5th ship goes down in 5 minutes, and one of them was AFK. So this game for the remainder is basically a 3-on-7, and it just started. Again, why some people just... I don't know how they got to legendary tier, to say it nicely. But again, we did manage to connect a permanent fire, I believe, and a torpedo on one of those ships out there. And that is what this ship is all about. If you catch that torpedo or that, you know, that fire, and then you can catch the flood or vice versa, you are going to absolutely rack up the damage, as you guys are currently witnessing.
Crazy times. Cross playoff user, I know. Where's my water?
Now, I'm going to be honest here. At this point, you can probably see my expression on stream. I'm sort of mentally checked out from this one. But we're still going to try. We're still going to put in some effort here and hopefully get some clips out of it, especially with how new the Jinan was at this time. But it brings up about a great point here. The skill of this ship, and basically all ships in this game, comes down to positioning. And while we are playing this one rather risky here, considering the circumstances of the game with how poor our team's positioning is, mainly because 5 of them are dead, we're going to try and get in nice and close, utilize our torpedoes, and when we get spotted, pop our smoke screen here. But we launch 40 torpedoes there, and then we pop our reload booster. And yeah, this Jinan and this Montana are right in the way of that. But we also have to be wary of the 2 remaining destroyers. One of them was actually a viewer from stream. He just so happened to get in the game here. And yeah, Ron B, he's a good lad. But there is, of course, a massive hit from, I believe, that Montana, because the Conqueror was AFK. And we often talk about positioning here. Positioning is absolutely vital in order to do well in these ships, especially the Pan-Asian cruisers. Now, it's basically holds true for every ship in this game, as we connect a nice 2 torpedoes there for a good amount of damage on that defense. But positioning is vital for essentially every ship in the game here. If you're often wondering why you're not performing well, or, you know, people often ask, like, how do I aim better, or how do I, you know, do better? Well, focus and pay attention to your positioning. Now, in a situation like this, it is basically everything you can do in order to survive somewhat here, as we get a little bit lucky with RNG. Now, honestly, that probably would have been an overpen regardless here, but yeah, you just have to do with what you can in a situation like this when your team just wants to choke down 18.1 inches of whatever you can fill in the blank there. All things considered, though, and you guys will see it here in just a moment, this is the perfect situation as that Shima comes out from behind that island there, which is why we were detected. This is a perfect situation as we connect 3 more torpedoes for the Jinan. All of your teammates dead and the enemy pushing into you lends far more favorably than you having to push into position. Obviously, because the ships are headed towards you, you are much more able to get your torpedoes on target and utilize your smokescreen. Now, again, this Conqueror says I need intelligence data, and I don't know if he just lagged out or if he quit because he was sitting at the back of the map there, but he does end up being AFK, which you guys, there's a funny moment towards this here at the end. But we are now in the point where we're having to utilize all of RNG. We're utilizing this island cover here. Luckily, both of them were shooting HE at us, which is honestly going to do more damage overall to this ship than shooting AP. Now, of course, you can easily get citadels on this ship from most angles. However, shooting ships like this broadside, while it should be a big chunk of damage in Legends, it just seems like you get overpens a majority of the time. But with a good lead and spread of those torpedoes, 2 more torpedoes on that Carl, and he goes down, and we tick ourselves a high caliber. And wait a minute now, is this becoming a little bit of a game? 8 torpedoes on target. Don't look now, but Aaron is getting a few torpedo hits here, ladies and gentlemen. The bad news is these destroyers are going to have to make massive mistakes, and as we just said, one of them was a viewer from stream, and he's probably not going to do that. But again, nonetheless, this is the reason that you try sometimes towards the end of these games, because as you will see here in just a moment, this Mino was essentially a paid actor. Which begs the question, how bad was my team if this is how bad the enemy team was? No, but sometimes when a game like this occurs, you see red, and that's what the enemy team saw. So we just wanted to push into position here, and I wasn't expecting a Mino. I was trying to angle while getting torpedoes off, and yeah, I wasn't expecting a Mino to not pay attention to me at all. Now, of course, he is getting shot by, I think, the defense there. So he does have something to deal with, but I was spotted the whole time coming up behind him, and yeah, we're not really getting pens. We're actually getting shatters here, of course. Not enough angle for these small caliber guns, but that is when we notice that defense is right here as well. A few more bounces, a few more pens. I probably should have just had the HE loaded, but if you saw earlier, we do end up throwing a few of those shells on the bow of that Mino, connect more torpedoes. And with that, we now have 196,000 damage, a dev strike on that Mino, and 3 kills here with 4 minutes remaining. And if this Conqueror, doesn't disconnect and actually utilizes the 70 or so thousand HP that the Conqueror has, our team may have had more of a chance than what you guys are about to witness, which is absolute pure memery. I got set on fire, and he disabled every single torpedo tube I had. If you guys ever want to talk about RNG and the lack thereof, just watch a stream with me and you will see the least amount of favorable RNG. No, that's just a pure cope, but it sure feels like it sometimes, and that was a great example of it. I can't tell you the last time I've shot a boat and disabled every single module that boat has. I know some Discord dork in the comments is like, well, he didn't disable your engine or your steering, though. Actually, it wasn't every module. Yes, thank you for the expert opinion there. But as we predicted on stream, and if you want to go back, I will try to include the video or the link to the stream there. We predicted that Shima was going to torp behind us, and seeing that the game is essentially over as the defense switches to AP and puts 2 of them right through our bow, giving us or leaving us with only 2,800 health here. But we connect a beautiful set of 2 torpedoes. The spread was nice. Again, favorable RNG for us here to get the elimination on that defense. And with that, we now have 4 kills, 12 torpedo hits, and we're working our way up to 230,000 damage. There's Ron. We do manage to get our heal off. This Montana was playing B, the American battleship main, at the back of the map, and we did manage to damage him pretty well, and that is when probably the best thing that could happen happens. The Shima comes around the corner, bow in. He can only use 2 of his guns. If he turns broadside, he will get absolutely nuked, and it doesn't really matter because he's not going to be able to kill us in time. He does actually get a good chunk of our health, but with how slow the reload on those guns are, the guns on the Shima and the Japanese destroyers actually aren't bad, even the torpedo boats, but with that kill on that Shima, it just felt so good, and to get the Kraken with that, what a time to be alive. And here, I'm not gonna lie, my heart was pounding in this situation because there was still a chance. In my mind, the Conqueror was still playing. Unfortunately, he wasn't, though. There comes Ron, and any sort of connection to my boat here, I was just dodging all over the place. And here you can see what was arguably a reasonable crash out. I was like, just fucking do something. Do anything besides sit behind this island, which a mere 5 minutes ago, you saw him spamming for intelligence data, and yeah, he was still in that position. So whether he quit the game, whether he lagged out, it doesn't really matter. It was still a good, fun, high damage Kraken replay for us. And you're going to get games like that. You can see that I realized he was AFK. I was crashing out over someone who either lagged out or quit. So it's a funny moment for stream, but a 2,800 loss there would have been about a 4,200 win if we had managed to clutch that. It would have been an insane comeback. Maybe a little bit of, if we don't get Citadel there by that defense, there's honestly a chance. Now, whether that Shima rushes us because we were low health, again, there's so many different factors. If my grandmother had wheels, she would be a bike. So the famous clip there from some cooking show. But honestly, decent scores from the enemy. They did their job, and our team did not. So a GG's all around, but that was, like I said, an epic, fun replay. 249K there, Kraken. Pretty gnarly game in the Jinan. So in the right spot, this ship can be absolutely devastating. However, the impact early game, you don't have that radar, you don't have that, I guess, early game DPM unless you can connect a few torpedoes and follow it up with some permanent fires. But that is the video there. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I will try to link everything I said down below, including my OnlyFans. So make sure to buy a fan from me. But no, I love you guys. Have a great Monday. It should be when this video is released. I'm out. Peace.